Welcome. So Josh and Lidi, this is most of the MDM class of cohort 15 as they're known. You're our first guest speakers of the year, so thank you so much for that. I've already seeded a little bit about Eastside Games being the awesome company that you are and friends to this program, employer of alumni, sponsor of poker nights and of global game jams recently. I saw Josh post that this morning, so I'm applauding you all on that. But yeah, much like we were chatting about leading into this session for everyone, for the MDM students on the call, Eastside Games is one of our main players in our, not only the social gaming space, but just the greater gaming space. They work on some really cool IPs. They have some amazing people behind it. Josh has been a longtime champion of the industry, and I actually saw him on the cover of a magazine when I was shopping. So I actually saw it out in the wild, not just posting. So he was on the cover of BC Business Magazine for the Business of Good, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's so Josh, Lidi, there's no real format. We want to make it the AMA, but hoping maybe you can say a little bit about each of yourselves, and then we'll a bit about Eastside Games and how we might intersect in the future. That'd be really cool to get a sense of where you're at and how we might be able to connect in the near future.
Go ahead,
That's
Lidi.
great.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. My name is Lidi Giroux. I'm the communications manager at Eastside Games. I've been there for about 8 years. I started out in more of an operations, office management capacity, have been building the culture there almost since the beginning of the studio. And in the last 3 years, I've been doing external communications, which is all of our press stuff, speaking at conferences such as these, our social channels. Sorry, I'm distracted because my dog's running around behind me. Our charity initiatives. I do a lot of article writing and those sorts of things. So that's me.
Hey, end of the day. These end of the day ones at home on Zoom all day. My name is Josh. I'm co-founder and CEO of Eastside Games. We're a local game studio. Thanks for the nice intro. I usually have a magazine around here sometimes. My best dad joke is I like reading it because it's the Ricky Gervais Office thing, so I could read it and be like, oh, this old thing. And it's funny because it's from like March of 2020, perfect mid condition. I'll be like, oh, I just thought I'd read a magazine with me on the cover. My friends and family tease me about it all the time, so I figured be part of the dad joke there. I started working in tech now almost 20 years ago, which is amazing and weird to say. And it's been the longest I've ever worked in a career. Before that was hospitality. I come from a very small town up north called Will River. It's probably got about, I used to always say it has 100 people in it, but now going back, I'm like, there's no way it has 100 people in it. It's probably about 50 people, maybe less, and it's about 30 miles outside of PG. Prince George will always be the city to me. So I'm a country kid at heart. Wake up at 5 a.m. every day. I feel lazy if I sleep in past that and never set my alarm. And I got into tech a little bit differently. I ended up going to school. It was called Capilano College at the time. Now it's called Capilano University. So I've succeeded in making my grandparents proud that I went to university. Now I can say that. And I got a diploma in information technology 20 years ago. It was like, come and do information technology. It's the way of the future. So I did that. I was a failed programmer. So I started finding business and doing the project management side of things. I was pretty good at that, a lot better than programming. So I ended up working in everything from telecommunications to many of our great Vancouver startups, like when Crystal Decisions got sold, I worked there and I did technical support on OLAP cubes. You can do that for your first job, but you could probably find something else that's a little bit more exciting to do as well. But I never had a desk job before, so I was like, this is fantastic and great. So I did that, and then I ended up working at a telecommunications company and learning how to punch down ADSL lines and stuff like that. And I like that. And then I worked in IT. My friend recruited me to work at the job at Relic in IT because it said I had an IT diploma. So he's like, you'd know how to work IT. So I did the Relic IT thing. I was a very horrible IT guy for a long time. I didn't know what I was doing, but fake it till you make it is what I think. I put RAM in a server when it was on once, and it like did this big explosion thing. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing ever, but I never really knew how to do that. And the purpose of all these things is I never really applied for any of those jobs. Somebody just recruited me to do that. And I think that's the point is you're going to make lots of connections and you have a big leg up leaving CDM, and you can have connections within your, like when I started in tech, uh, lots of there's just Facebook. Like Twitter wasn't really around. People weren't using it. People weren't really using LinkedIn yet. It kind of started while we were there. You didn't really have these social networks and engagement. So take advantage of that to talk to people and to start conversations, and know that it's a really long tail game for what you want to do next in your career. If you want to work in tech, you want to work in games, you want to start your own thing. I see everything as a long tail conversation. I'm the worst person to get interviewed. We just finished doing an interview and people are like, what's the Eastside Games is doing quite well. We have some big announcements coming up, including our IPO. We've been bootstrapped and profitable for 10 years. And I think people want to hear like, what's your get rich quick scheme or your get successful scheme? And it's work really hard, and then maybe in 5 years you'll have a little bit of success, and then work even harder, and maybe in 5 years you'll have that as well. And that's games and that's tech. So if you're looking for you're gonna get your first job and then you're just gonna get paid with GameStop's stonks, you're at the wrong talk. Won't happen. But
Good
it's fun.
pop culture reference, Josh. I like it.
Yeah, there you go. Right when I'm at home, I'm able to get in all these clubhouse chats and get up to date on what's going on. So that's me in a nutshell. It's the end of the day, so that was a bit of a ramble. So you can hit me out, but I guess the point being, you could totally do what I do. If a kid from Willow River that didn't get the opportunity to go to university with a speech impediment can be CEO of what I think one of our most successful and profitable game studios that came out of Vancouver, you can definitely do it.
Yeah, well, I do love those stories of if I can do it, anyone can do it. But no, there's more to it than that. I mean, you guys have had heart, insight, the drive. I mean, I've seen you at every networking event and conference and buying beverages for everyone around you. Like it's, I don't know, like how did you take that drive, and putting your company and yourselves out there to make Eastside Games the success that it is, bootstrapping it to where it is, to having an IPO right now. I mean, historically, I look back to Pot Farm. I don't know, was that sort of the origin story, or what's the history there? What got you off the ground?
Oh, Pot Farm. For those that don't know, there was a time before when you could not have talks on Zoom and talk to people in real life. And in this world as well, there was a time when, well, first of all, no one gave a shit about GameStop, and that was done. In this time, that doesn't exist. And lastly, people were terrified of cannabis. This was the devil's lettuce, and people wanted nothing to do with it. There was a time when our former premier, Mike Harcourt, did not invest and become not on the board of directors for cannabis. But now, everyone that is like, hey, have you guys heard about this cannabis? It's great to invest in, and it's legal, and you could buy it at Shoppers Drug Mart. There's a time when none of that existed. And during this time, we decided as a bunch of to figure out what to do next on Facebook. There's games in Facebook at this time. That's how fast it moves. And they were huge. And we thought, what if we can make a game for somebody that normally doesn't play games? Because we were making a whole bunch of games. we probably made 40 or 50 games, and launching them on Facebook and maintaining them and doing, what people do now, live ops, basically, but we're doing it back in the Facebook days. And it was awesome to be a Facebook developer because you can just put it up right away. You didn't have to get it approved or anything. It was like magic. You didn't have to go through Steam or anything, and then you'd get customers right away looking at it, giving you feedback. You had these great tools on the wall that you could engage. It was really great to build back then. And I think a lot of our personality came back in there because we put it out and people are like, no one's built anything like this. So we put it out and everyone wanted to engage and talk. And the lesson learned there is we really doubled down on that and said, let's make this part of our culture. Like, you don't have to start a game studio and start from the ground up to build it like everything else out there. You can do something a little different. And I think with that, we really established what I feel is our identity. And we haven't really lost that when we grew from 15 people to well over 100 people. We do stuff a little bit different, but I think that's if you're going to go out and start your own game studio, you just got to kind of stay true to what you're doing. We used to always say in talks, it's kind of like building. When you go out, you don't open your own first coffee shop and say, I want to make Starbucks. You got to figure out, are you going to make something like food truck style and scrappy, or are you going to go out and try to go premium hipster all the way, and you're going to be Revolver, Matchstick, or whatever, and really like figure out what you want to be. So I think Pot Farm really defined us, and it also made us be scrappy. So the cool thing about Pot Farm is it's one of the first games that reached that big of an audience without any performance marketing, because we weren't allowed to do buy any ads. So we really learned how to be lean and scrappy. And I think to this day, we still operate really lean, and we're bootstrapped. So we only spend the money that comes in. We don't raise any money. We didn't get any investors, and we just kind of operated from day one like that. So if you're going to start your own gig, I think that's one of the things you should look at. Are you going to raise money and give up a portion of your company? It's not just the money you're giving up, but it's also the control of the company that you're giving up. You have to weigh if that's important to you, or are you just going to start really small and iterate from there?
I just want to add on to that. So what Josh was saying with Pot Farm being our identity, what I draw from that and how I feel about that is that created our basis in creating counterculture IP. So when we finally broke into doing mobile games, a few years later in 2014, we automatically went towards the Pot Farm, universe. And then even expanding into licensed IP, you can see the games that we make with Trailer Park Boys or Always Sunny or Archer, those are all kind of in the same vein. Like, a lot of studios probably wouldn't touch those, but that's what we're all about. And we've always stayed true to that. Yeah.
No, and which is amazing. And again, like your work with the Trailer Park Boys and Always Sunny and Archer, like it's kind of, there's a certain East Side Games vibe that you've been bringing to these. But again, like I'm going back to the Pot Farm and that, Josh, you mentioned you made like 40 games. Like I'm looking at, was Pot Farm the first one out of the gate that got you where you were at, or did you have a bunch of mini hits that kept you alive until Pot Farm? Like you hear about that, was it a swing and a miss for the first few and then you had one that was a big success, or was it, did you nail it out of the park on the first one? Like how did you start with getting the first game of East Side Games out there?
Yeah, we had lots of games. We had a casino at that time. We had like a casino game and was doing okay, but that wasn't really us. But our casino game was, you'd play casino and then you would like play slot machine, and then you would trade it in and get prizes, because we were like, nobody would play a casino game and just get fake casino money. That's crazy. Nobody will ever do that. You have to get prizes. So creating the prizes and the story were so hard that we couldn't scale that. And then we had like a house dress up game, which we all know, I work in casual mobile games. So that's, Property Brothers is one of the biggest games out there, and there's many more like that. And then we had some puzzle games, and we had a fashion game, And we could have taken any one of these, and we had a farming game. We could have taken any one of these and rolled with it, and I think we would have been where a lot of the games are today in the top charts, because those are all like huge games that people play. We chose to stick with the farming route because there wasn't much out there in farming, and we were so late. We were working to try to get this farming game out. Concept just didn't work. We were so late for it, so we did a quick reskin of it to get it out. And yeah, it was like one of those things where it was, all right, we have this much time left to do it. Let's put this out. It wasn't the first thing that made money for us, but it was definitely the thing that, hockey stick the growth. And then we're like, okay, this is what we're doing now. All the rest of the games, not so much. And we're doing this, and we're going to try to figure out how to make this work.
Which is kind of awesome. Again, is the IPO connected to, is it Leaf? Is that the company that was, which again, I kind of like it's on brand, we'll say, I guess, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's the company that we sold all those assets to, all of the cannabis games. And then they're leading the IPO that's upcoming. The cool thing about working in Facebook games at the time was it showed us not to have any excuses, because in the Facebook games at the time, there wasn't really any analytics. There was a couple things that we could look at, and it was put out a game and see how it's doing, but it wasn't you didn't have the tools, you didn't have engines, you didn't have anything that you use now. We just had to like figure it out. So being Flash game developers back in the day, the tools that you have at your fingertips are amazing in order to do all that stuff.
No, that's awesome. Part of the reason I'm asking some of these questions, we just held a session about the pitch project option internally in the master's program. We actually allow some students the entrepreneurial path if they choose to brave it. So I was if you had to go back in time and or back into present, what would you be trying now? What's the Facebook of now in your perspective?
Yeah, so right now,
or buy GameStop stock, either way. What's your game?
No, it's too stressful. I watch that and sneaker shopping are both way too stressful for me. I'm out of both of those games. What I'd do right now is I'd get a small team together and, kind of figure out what's next, that you can get some things to market really quick and get some fan interaction on it right now. I think there's too much time spent right now, especially with new studios, on these big bets, and they're not making a small enough bets to get stuff out. Or they're working with publishers that it's so long tail that it becomes a grind right away. So I think it used to be hyper casual. I think there's going to be a fundamental switch in hyper casual in the next 4 to 6 months, especially with some of the advertising stuff that's kind of happening amongst the ecosystem. That's going to change that a little bit, but it still could be okay. It used to be VR because you could get stuff quickly to market and kind of get it funded. But what I'd look at now is get your idea up as quick as possible. If you want to work on PC, get something up on itch.io and see if that works, or get a team together and get a game out with as quick as you can on mobile, and just see if the concept works and kind of play with that, and keep it as simple as possible. I think the biggest example of that is the Among Us crew, right? Like the top game right now, and it's based on a very popular game that everyone's played, and it's a crew of 3 people that are operating the biggest game of the year right now. So it's not the size of your team and it's not your budget, it's your execution, and that you're in the market and you're playing it, and that people can see that.
That's awesome. And I think that's probably another reason why you guys are often supporters of the Global Game Jam, or people making content and, shorter, quicker, put something out there, which is awesome.
I think that's also, it's great advice. Just to partially answer Dr. Ralph's point in the chat, is that having something that you put out there, that you publish, that's playable, that shows your passion for games is huge when you're applying to a studio. So I know you were referring to someone starting their own thing, but if you're applying and you show this like heartfelt passion for games, and that you've put something out there, and even if it has had no success, those people will definitely bubble to the top of our list when it comes to looking at resumes, for sure.
Yeah, especially published game, like what Lidi said is right. Published games are the key, because I think a lot of people make games. A lot of people bring demos. If you're going to bring a demo, make sure that you've tested the demo and I could play it on your phone. Well, back when I wouldn't touch your phone now. That's gross. It's like, what are you trying to kill me? It's COVID out there. I can't touch your goddamn phone. But like, if we're going to have a call like this, make sure you have like some sort of document that you could walk me through if the game doesn't work, because it shows like you're going to be able to think on your feet. That's kind of what we're looking for. If you're going to go into design, engineering, production, you're going to be able to figure it out, because these things happen all the time. We have to pitch to Apple through Zoom and Google through Zoom and IP, and so we have to figure it out too. But the global game jam is really good, because a lot of people make a game, but where I think they don't follow through is after that game is done, which one of those people are going to then take the game and push it out on Google Play or push it out on Apple, go through creating a personal account for it and kind of get that done. Back when we were in the office, when somebody could say like, I've made a game, and it's like, oh, that's great. And you're going to see like a demo on a laptop, that's okay. But if they said, here, you could check it out, I'll show it to you on my phone, I'll send you the link and you can play it on my store. And even better, if they've implemented some of those easy social features on the game and they understand how it works. So I can actually see like, oh, you understand the business. The number one reason why people don't get hired is they go through every single process. They have great education. They meet all of the bullet points to the job description. They show a demo. They interview well. They wear a clean shirt. If you're on Zoom, you're wearing pants. And the last thing where they fail is they don't play our games and they don't know our business. So it's the classic story of, you go for an interview with the Canucks and I'm wearing my Oilers hat, and they're like, you're awesome, but you don't like the Canucks, bud, you don't get the job. So that's what everyone gets eliminated. If you're applying at Relic, make sure you've bought their last game, that's their latest hit, and play it. And that's what you're going to have to eat that cost to do that development. If you're applying at a free-to-play studio, make sure you've played the last event, and maybe you've made a purchase so you can at least talk about that purchase and you bring a bug to it. But you really have to be invested, because that's where the most of the competition, where it's like, we really like this candidate, but they didn't even play the event this week. Like, do they really get our business?
Yeah. Josh and I share the same brain. So I had actually been writing this in my notes after the make and publish your own games, is that if you're applying, playing our own games is so important. And we can tell if you're lying, because there's seasons that you'll go through that you fly through in a couple minutes each during the first time user experience. And so if you like pick a season in the middle of that, thinking that that's far enough ahead, we know that it's not. So actually play them, actually enjoy them. And if you don't enjoy our games, maybe you don't enjoy, or any games, you won't enjoy working for that studio. So that's also important on your end, to make sure that it's a good fit for you as well as the studio you're applying for.
I see Dave, Dr.
Sure.
Dude.
For Josh, Lidi, thank you for doing this. One question is that, what about the power of networking? Because Josh, you said that you probably never applied for other jobs. I think I've only applied cold for 2 jobs in my entire life, and referrals and references and contacts and networking have done the rest. If someone wants to apply to your studio, should they be contacting people at the studio, researching even that way, other than just playing games on the website?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about schools as well is you have a deep alumni. So we've got interested, or we've got, Dennis has sent me intros, and we've hired people through those intros, or we said, oh, it's just not a fit. They're qualified, but it's not a fit. What about this studio? Use your instructors to get feedback to see sort of what place you'd want to work at. And most places, including our own studio, have a good referral bonus as well. So there's lots of people that you'll have to sell yourself to sort of that person to get referred, but we do lots of referrals. So and it's a conversation too. So I think where a lot of people, like when I was at CAP, I didn't go to school one day, and that was the day. I don't even remember why I didn't go to school. It was a pretty grueling program. It was like one of those 2 years and 1 year for like adult students. Like, you're old AF, come and do 1 year and get out of our school. We only want you here for a year type thing. So I did that, and I didn't go to school one day. And that was the day the guy from EA came in to talk about, hey, this is what we're going to do at EA. And I think if I was at that program, I would have heard that speech, and I would have said, like, I got to work at EA because, you know, this guy told me how he started at EA and I have to do that. And so I never worked at EA because I obviously skipped school that day and I don't know what the hell I was doing. And so I went out on this other path with tech rather than games. But the point of that is I think you should utilize and talk to a lot of places and start that conversation, because you might not fit a job at a mobile game studio, but maybe in a couple of years that's for you. And so it's about connecting on LinkedIn and doing your own biz dev. Like I think that's the biggest thing that's changed is people kind of have to do their own biz dev, and it's a long time conversation, and there's lots of opportunities to work contracts and stuff. The big thing that people really have to be aware of is make sure you want to work at a place because you like what they're doing, but it's more important for me what I look for I haven't looked for a job forever, but you know, I mean, CEOs don't last forever, so eventually they're going to can me and I'll have to look for a job. But when I do, it's going to be look for culture first. Like that's what we really look for, is you got to look for a place that you know, it's a job you want to do, but it's a culture that you feel you fit in. There's so much choices for what type of studio you want to work for, and to go from there. And it's your own brand. I always tell my team as well, it's about building your brand. And for some people, it makes sense to, I'm really glad that I got to work at some of the biggest companies in the world. I got to work at SAP. Before that, I worked at Fairmont Hotels and I loved it. I even worked IT at Fairmont Hotels for a while. Then I got to work at Business Objects and then THQ Relic, which is funny because THQ is back in the world right now. That blows my mind how it's just all coming full circle. That'll be the next big stock. It'll be like THQ will come back and everyone will be buying it again. That I worked at THQ, but I got to learn like all those processes and then say, I never want to do processes again. I'm the worst for paperwork and doing processes because I had to do it for so many years. I didn't want to do it, but that can also be another way that you'll want to go, because if you just never have had to do that process type work, if you ever have to pitch a company like Microsoft and you don't know the language they're speaking, you're probably not going to get that contract.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that you just said. So in terms of networking, we do have 3 CDM alumni that are currently employed, and then probably a half a dozen that have left to do other things. So that's probably your best bet if you want to work for Eastside Games, is to hit those people up, see if it's going to be a good fit. And then also about building your brand. Like it's pretty transparent when you see someone and they're kind of molding themselves into what they think the company wants to hear. And no one's going to, like I said before, with the type of games you make, no one's going to be happy if you've molded yourself into someone that you're not, and then you start working at a place and it won't be authentic. And that's what we're all about. So, and I think a lot of studios are like that. So that would be my advice, is to really be true to yourself and what's important to you in terms of the ethics and values and the IP or the games that the studios are making.
Nice. Well, I just shared the link to the Eastside Games jobs page. Not to say any of these students right here should apply right now because they're not even near graduating, but it's going to lead me to a question. So these are students that didn't skip the Eastside Games talk. So this is our EA talk of the day here. So if these students become inspired to become future ESG employees, yes, connecting with alum for sure, good option. But say if they're looking at these job descriptions on the board and they just want to figure out what you'd like to see in a resume portfolio, are there elements of things that you like to see from applicants beyond having played your games or having, does it benefit them to look at your current job descriptions, not even with hope that maybe you're still hiring for a role like that for August or September when they start? Like, how do you think? Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, any advice you have on those that are thinking ahead to kind of mold themselves into the roles that they're going to be applying for? Like, what can they do right now to benefit them for looking better and in an honest way for companies like yours?
I don't know if this will apply for everyone or even if this answers your question, but I know that Josh and I are the same and we come from really blue collar backgrounds. And I always like to see applicants that have a variety of experience. You know, if they got their first job when they're 16 and they worked retail or they worked in customer service. And I feel like that type of skill is character building, to be cliche. And I find it very meaningful when I'm, you know, selecting someone for any sort of role, that they've kind of gone through the paces of doing a job that maybe wasn't as exciting as working in games.
Which is awesome. Again, that's a great culture thing to recognize that work ethic. And because so often people hear about, oh, don't include those, you know, those other jobs that are, you know, but it's to hear that you have that appreciation for the blue collar, the work ethic, we'll say, those that were working through studying and doing side gigs. And that's awesome.
Oh man, yeah. Don't leave those off. Throw those in. Wear that as a badge of honor. Those, yeah, I worked in those fields for a long time, so I have respect for that for sure.
Yeah, you can always start like, I wish I would have started early, kind of researching where I wanted to work for tech. And, you know, I picked Radiant to work at my first tech company because I read an article. I think it was like one of those, I don't remember what it was called, BC Tech or BC Business. And I read it because I was at school and I was just looking out. I just used to look at what are the top BC growing startups and be like, I have a better chance probably working at a startup than I won't be able to break into like Microsoft or something. So I just look at them all and I just cold email them if they didn't have anything and see if they needed anyone. And I read an article about the CEO at the time who they didn't wear suits and he didn't have a name badge on his office. That used to be a big thing, I guess, the name badge on his office. He didn't have it. And he just had like a regular desk. Not a corner office. And I was like, oh, that sounds good. And so when I got my interview, I knew that and I said that. And they're like, well, this guy seems like he knows what he's doing. So let's put him on the phones. And I started doing like tech support for ADSL. And that's how I started to get my foot in the door. So, you know, your conversation, if you're going to graduate in 3, 6, 9 months, your conversation kind of starts now where you want to work. And that's where you have to start following people on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn and kind of knowing about that culture and what happens and opportunities. There's always opportunities where people are speaking at Pocket Gamer, or if you're going to go to another industry, they're doing AMAs. You can always kind of figure that out. And they're always posting it on their social channels. So you could kind of start doing your research and figuring out what you want to do. Start building a game if you want to work in games. If you want to work in PC games, start building levels. I remember back in the day, a lot of the level designers with the free tools would be people who would hire as designers. But you want to make sure when you show up, you have something more than just meeting all the bullet points, because there's lots of other people that have met all those bullet points during that time. When the world reopens, hitting up all the events that are happening from BC Tech to DigiBC to mixers and stuff like that. And, you know, that's how we hired most people for community to new producers to associate engineers, that sort of stuff, is just kind of knowing all that stuff, right?
Neil, like I say, we got a question here, a hand in the.
Hi. Sorry, a little bit of a different direction, but I was wondering, there's so many software and hardware changes happening all the time in games. How do you keep your teams ready to use the new stuff? Do you do internal training? Like, how do you keep people fast and flexible?
It's like we like to call a new custom approach called panic and chaos whenever we have to change any sort of format. It's a delicate rollout, and then people just what's the technical term, lose their shit whenever there's anything new and they don't know what to do. So that's kind of our process. But that's a great question, because I think people obsess a little bit too much about the tools that you need to do for the job, and then actual the work that you need to do. So the tools are just going to help you, but you still have to put in the work. So it doesn't matter if we don't have Zoom anymore, we're going to have something else that we're going to use. And it doesn't matter. We made games before, and this will be a shocker for people, but we made games and we communicated before there was Slack. And there was lots of us that didn't go out and didn't want to talk to anyone, didn't ever want to touch anyone, including myself, that we were able to still communicate and get shit done. So I think it's important to really know what technologies people are using, and to really know, not be so dependent on the tools and methodologies, but more on what are the results you want to take at that. So I would use Agile as a great example of that. When I first started in the industry, it was really, really big and everyone was into it and everyone was Agile or Scrum trainer and we all had to do that. But the problem is that they kind of forced that on all these studios that were doing waterfall. So they would just make you go to all these meetings and people would be sitting and not taking it. And then you come back to it. And what happens is, it's like, remember that doesn't work. What actually works is Kanban. And everyone's like, yeah, let's do that. Or what works as a hybrid solution. So I don't think you can ever solve that problem because technology moves so fast and we just kind of have to figure it out. But what you have to do is you have to be adaptable and you have to say, what I know is this, but what I think we can do is this. For back end, when we launched our first games, it was just all physical servers. There wasn't even a one cloud out there. That was it. It was just all like physical servers. And now, like nobody's scaling on bare metal anymore. Some people are, but no one's like, even when you go to offices now, every office used to have, every IT room used to have this big nerd area where there would just be all these physical servers, and now we're all working remote from home and we're doing everything in the cloud. So like things change so fast, so you have to be willing to adapt and change really fast as well.
Just to add to that too, I'd say within Eastside Games, our structure is such that each game team kind of operates as their own little company, not financially or anything, but just within that group, they can decide things. They can decide what tools, communication tools, what types of software they want to use. So I'd say our culture is very collaborative, and so they can decide within those smaller groups what works for them as a team. So some of those teams are 5, 10, 15 people, and if they can come to a consensus on what works within that small group, it doesn't really need to expand to the whole 150 person company. That can be a decision that they make on their own.
If you're going to go the entrepreneur track, and even if you're not, the way to think about it is all of the tools that we use today weren't designed to be those tools. They're an afterthought. So Stuart was never a great game developer. I think he really wants to be a great game developer, but he did fantastic at making tools, making photo sharing and making Slack. And that was kind of what came out of that. So you never know where you're going to go with tech, but that's okay because you might get something magical out of it. And some of our most designed games where we did that and we were like, we are going to make sure that this game can scale, it never crashes, it has all these tools, and then we put it out and nobody liked the game. So it was a well-designed game nobody played. Like you can have, if you're going to build games, don't worry about the problem. What if 100,000 people play this and it crashes? Because if you have that problem, you can solve it. Very few people have that problem. To say I have so many customers that I can't keep the game up, you want that problem. The problem that most people have is they think about all these other problems in building it, and they never launch their game. That's the biggest problem. Never launching, and so they don't even know if it's going to take off.
And this is somewhat related. Don't make merch for your game until it's profitable. Otherwise, you'll be stuck with boxes of embarrassing t-shirts.
That's a big thing, yeah. That's the best investment you can make, though, if you are going to start your own game studio or launch your own game and you're going to go to events. Don't worry about like fancy demos or whatever. Go and get a t-shirt making kit and make one t-shirt with your name on it, with your game studio name on it, and wear it. And there's a good chance someone's going to remember you that way. That's kind of how we broke into conferences, to kind of do that at first. And if you can make a couple extra and you're talking to a publisher and you make something really nice, they're probably going to wear it. And when they wear it, they're going to say, hey, I remember these guys. That's pretty cool. But you have to, if you're going to do that, you have to really up your t-shirt game in order to do that. So that's kind of how we started our networking. But you got to go to every event, be at every event, have a cool shirt. You have a better chance than most, because most people won't go to any events.
Cool stickers, Dragon Up. I remember. Actually, I probably still have some in my office. Yeah, it's
one of my favorites.
There it is. Yeah, they do. Nice. Yeah, so there's some lower end swag to support the T game, though. I totally get that. As a way of promoting the business. It's pretty low cost. It's good advice. Nice. Yeah, I thought you were still rocking the stickers. That's that makes sense.
Lots. We just made you'll eventually get to the level of success where you're making fresh linen candles by ESG. So there you go. That's after 10 years you get a candle for sweat.
That is fancy. That is pretty damn fancy there.
And
wow.
we made whiskey. Do you have it behind you, Josh?
Oh yeah.
Crown Royal, did you license? No.
We made this with Art Society. So
that's awesome.
So that was a 3-year commitment for it to age, and so we just got that in the last couple months, and we just signed another 4-year contract to do the next batch. So hopefully we're still around.
Yeah, we have fun.
Yeah, I'm sure you will be. That's the. But yeah, so actually, we not only have alumni with Eastside Games directly, but I mean, Truly Social has some grads that are collaborating. We'll say. I don't know. It's there seems to be some good synergies in the game industry in town, and even on campus, we have the Truly. I just saw Paris too actually make comments. I was like, that's cool.
That's great. Yeah, that's kind of one of the new things we're doing is we're trying to disrupt and change how publishing works. So we work with Truly Social Games, and we're co-developing some properties with them. Yeah. And we're really looking for small, scrappy studios to get out idle games. We have a whole bunch of games we're getting ready to launch. And it's really nice to work with studios. So I think that's what I find really enjoyable. Back when we could travel, I was going to maybe on the road for probably half the year, taking 40 or 50 planes a year and meeting other studios and working with them and just building games with them. I think that's kind of where the game industry is going, and I think it's amazing. It's no longer going to be, hey, here's a bunch of money, make a game, put it on the shelf, see what happens. It's going to be, let's work together on it, and if we get successful, we can have another Trailer Park Boys on our hands. Then we're kind of jump starting the next Eastside Games. And I think if we could have had somebody that would have done that with us, it would have really escalated our growth. And I'd love to do that with local studios or studios around the world that have the same DNA of get shit done, launch some things, and let's find some new markets. I'm sure there's lots of people out there. Like for Eastside Games, we look for people that normally wouldn't play games, and we want to be the game that they play. And a lot of other people have their own little markets they want to work for, and we want to get games to market and kind of not only show them about games, but show them how to make money with games and to make it a business. Because if you go the entrepreneur route, a lot of people don't talk about it, but it's a business. You have to make sure that your coffee shop has a lineup around the block, and you know how to service your customers. They're your customers. You got to make them happy. A lot of people, if you're unsure about that, and that's the other thing with games that I think has changed big time, is people don't really, they want to work in tech, but they don't want to talk to customers. It's all customer service. It doesn't matter if you're what position you're working in. You're looking at customer problems and you're trying to solve them, and you're dealing with that. So if you don't want to work with customers, games is not the industry for you. It's becoming more and more hands-on customers to try to figure that out, and it's only getting that, it's getting closer and closer to the customer, which I think is really good, because you get to see exactly where you are sort of in the ecosystem, and you get to improve on that each and every day. So you have to love that.
That's awesome. So I want to be mindful of your time in that too, because we're closing in on the end of a long day for you all. But I also know that there's students that have this AMA, and I feel like I've monopolized more than my fair share of time. I do like seeing, so Neil and Tom, the two student faces on the call, proud of these guys. They're our industry reps. They actually help pull the speaker series together. So I'm going to give them a little props for doing that. But if any students have questions, if Tom or Neil, you've got questions, take the floor. This is, we've got a few more minutes to get Lidi and Josh's perspective on, it did say AMA, right? Anything.
Anything you want.
I guess I could go again. I'm wondering, so Trailer Park Boys, super cool Canadian IP as well. That must have been awesome to work on. Are there more things like that you guys are trying to develop internally for
Letterkenny.
Vancouver or something like that? Sorry?
I was saying Letterkenny.
I would love to do Letterkenny.
I would love you to do Letterkenny as the.
We have loads that we can that we're going to do. I normally speak off the cuff, but now we're on the verge of doing our IPO, so I can't say much about what we're doing, but we have some amazing IPs that are coming out really shortly that I think are going to blow people away. But yeah, it's been fun. We have a combination of original IP that we created, IPs that our great partners have created, and some industry leading stuff that we're going to be doing some stuff in 2021 and 2022 that's really going to step outside our boundaries. Like, obviously, if you look at the type of games we've made is, you know, Trailer Park Boys, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Archer. These are kind of all catering to a certain, you know, audience. We're doing some stuff outside of that too as we grow and we grow our platform and our technology, and we've already kind of shown that by doing some stuff with Goldbergs, which is one of my favorite shows, Dragon Up, and working with Kano on Fubar, to name a few, and some more that are coming as well.
I want to pick a comment out of the chat here. Josh Miller said, "Josh, I'm from Zabalos, LOL. Is that close to Willow River? Or is that just another small town? I want to hear more about it."
Actually, I was a bit mistaken. I forgot. Did he say Gold River? He said
No,
Gold River, right?
Willow River.
Oh, okay. Because Zabalos is on Vancouver Island, and we have a city there called Gold River, which kind of made me think he might be from Vancouver Island, but I was a bit mistaken.
Zabalos
Sounds a bit fancy to me, Gold River.
I think it was a mining town, and it had an adequately named, similarly named type of thing.
Yeah.
But Zabalos is on the northwest coast of Vancouver Island. It is a village of about 160 people that goes up and down throughout the years. It's just very small. We've never actually had cell service. People are limited there to about 3 gigabytes a month for their internet service. Yeah, it just rung a bell when you said you're from a smaller kind of northern place.
Who also worked in IT and also is named Josh. Like this is the
Yeah,
parallel to
yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy.
Josh is he's our IT guy, which is kind of interesting there. So that's
Yeah.
Yeah,
great.
that's what happens. You have to have one Josh in the small town, and that's all you're allowed.
Yeah, actually, I don't meet too many other Joshes, even in Vancouver, to be honest.
Yeah. I also want to take another comment here from David. I think we have discussed making a Rush themed video game. I'm sure it's been some drunken conversation.
How about Crown Royale? Huh? Huh?
Yeah, you see my.
Oh, I know, man. I got you. I know.
Yeah, I like Crown Royal. What can I say? It's a kind of a thing.
But I like your twist on it, the Crown Royale, like Clash Royale.
See,
That's
yeah, right.
you're onto
Yeah.
something.
No trademark infringement at all. We're good.
Nope, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
We could probably make the Crown game. Anyways, we can get it. Yeah.
I think you could. But yeah, so actually there was one comment way up that, I mean, this isn't a real thing, but we had students in first term, they take game design as a course. Dave Frackie has taught it, Jason Elliott as well. Some of the students made a game that I off the cuff did say that it's very Eastside Games related. I mean, this is, they made a Bumblebee trippy LSD tunnel crazy game. If they have a trailer, I'm going to send it to you just to see it for a laugh, but it was amazing. I actually was like, it was a pretty cool looking game. I think you'd appreciate it.
Nice. Yeah,
send
send it to me. Yeah, happy to
There you
take
go,
a look at it.
Jeannie, you made a comment way up there. You reminded me. I was like, I love that Bumblebee game. I'm not biased, but it's memorable. It is a very memorable, very trippy game. I think you'll appreciate it.
Can't wait.
All right, so if there's no last questions, I think we're just going to say a public thank you to you two. I'm glad no one skipped Eastside Games Day because I think you have inspired a lot of students to think about this career path and the pursuit of all things games. I mean, if it ends up being with an ESG, a TSG, or even an EA, I mean, getting more people into the game industry is great. But your story is very inspiring, and your support of the industry and at large, it's recognized and seen. And it's like, always have the honor of addressing that Eastside Games as a Vancouver major supporter here and longtime MDM supporter. So thank you.
Thank you. That's really nice of you to say so. I like to say I put in honest country boys work ethic in everything I do. So that's what did Wayne Gretzky say? The biggest compliment you can give me is that I work hard every day. So I like to try to do that.